Hello and welcome to another weekly update and some good blog post resources for you this week. None by me, unfortunately, but some good other ones. I've been a bit slow on the blogging recently. Things have been kind of a bit busy, but I'm hoping to carve out a bit more time to get some good development blog posts done, both on Skype for Business and also on Microsoft Teams. So look out for those. I'm hopeful they will be forthcoming. In the meantime, there's some really good stuff being done in the community and being put out there, and none less so than, or none more so rather than this one, which is another blog post from Microsoft actually, and from the MSDN blogs, and it's about the bot framework, and it's how you hand off to human agents from your bot. Now, this is a really important it's a really important thing to consider, and it's a really important thing to get right when you're writing customer service bots, B2C, that's business to consumer type experiences. It's really important that if you have a bot that has maybe some AI in it and maybe does some FAQs and attempts to answer questions, it's really important that if your user experience reaches the limits of what the bot can handle and your bot has no more good answers, that you give a nice user experience. So you hand off to a human being who can field that question, because clearly the flow hasn't been right, something's gone wrong, the bot hasn't been able to kind of answer the question. So it's really important that you're able to hand off to a human in order to maintain a good experience. Now, there's a really good blog post about this. It's written by Jamie D. Sorry, Jamie, I don't know what your last name is, but you're down on MSDN as Jamie D. And it talks about, so there's already some good stuff written by one of the other MSDN authors, Lillian, around doing this with Node.js. What Jamie's talking about is doing it in C#, which is kind of more my world. I live much more in the C# world than I do in the Node.js world, so this has kind of more relevance to me, and it's really good to see this written up from a C# perspective as well. So that's really good. There's some really good videos as well. Videos are a great way, by the way. Videos are a great way of showing how something works. It's much easier to do that than to write it all down with a bunch of screenshots or whatever. I've started doing videos for quickly showing how things hang together and how stuff works. It's a really good way of showing different scenarios. And so yeah, Jamie goes through a couple of different scenarios, and there's links to code, there's links to GitHub as well. There's links off to other write-ups kind of surrounding this. It's a really nicely put together blog post. So you should definitely go and read that. And if you're writing bot framework bots and they do this kind of customer service thing of interpreting customer questions or taking customers through a journey, you really should consider having this kind of get out clause, or, you know, help, it hasn't worked, let's go to a human. Okay, changing tack slightly away from the technical and more to the speculative. An interesting ZDNet article by Mary Jo Foley this week, who's kind of noticed, or it's been brought to her attention, that some of the session titles in Microsoft Ignite are interesting and point to another version, a new version of Skype for Business on-premise, which is currently, it's being referred to in all the session titles as Skype for Business on-premise vNext. And that's kind of interesting because there's been a bit of kind of speculation, I guess, about whether or not there would be another version of on-premise. You know, Microsoft is very aggressive at the moment about its cloud offering, but it's interesting, if nothing else, to see that apparently it looks like maybe there will be another on-premise version. I don't think there's going to be much detail about it until we get to Ignite. What it does mean, though, is that Ignite's going to be an interesting place to be this year for Skype for Business news. So that's one to look out for. It's worth reading the blog post as well, because it's a nice wrap up of interesting things that are coming out that Mary Jo's pulled together. around Microsoft and around Skype for Business, taking into account some of that stuff from the Ignite session titles. And you can also go and have a look at Ignite and have a look at the session titles yourself and draw your own conclusions, because that's kind of good to do as well. And yeah, so I think that's kind of all interesting. It's interesting to see where that's going. I think yeah, I think it's good if it's true. I think if there is going to be another version of Skype Business on premise, I think that's good. I think lots of people still run on premise. I know Microsoft are pushing people to the cloud, and I think for a lot of people that makes sense. It's clearly the future. I think there are certain use cases though where staying on prem makes more sense at the moment, and there's workloads, certainly from our world, from the development world, there's workloads that you just can't do on the cloud at the moment. And if you need those workloads, so for instance, let's take an example, call recording. So if you need call recording, if call recording is a must for your organization to use Skype for Business, today you have to do that on premise. There is no good solid cloud recording solution, call recording solution for the cloud that is server side and is therefore fully compliant if you're in a very heavily regulated industry. And there are other examples like that as well, where you do have to stay on premise. And there will always be companies that, maybe for very valid reasons, but sometimes for other reasons as well, which are harder for maybe other people to understand. But there will always be companies that want to stay on premise and that want to keep all their infrastructure in house. And it's good that there's a route for those people, because I think if there wasn't, there's a risk that they might be pushed away from Skype for Business, if it were to kind of concentrate solely as a cloud offering. So I think that's good. Finally, the other interesting thing I noticed, well, actually, I didn't notice this. This was pointed out to me by a colleague at Modality Systems. So, Dave, this one's for you, and it's on GitHub, and it's a C# library, but it's a wrapper library for UCWA. Now, I didn't know this existed, but it's been put together by I don't know the person. I've not heard of them before. I'm going to try and pronounce his name. I apologize to him in advance, but Kenichiro Nakamura, I think that's right. From looking from what I can tell, I think he works at Microsoft. So I think he's probably either in the my guess would be either in the UCWA team or some sort of Skype business platform team, maybe. But he's written this wrapper library for UCWA, and it's kind of cool. He's written it in PC. It's a PCL, so that means you can take it and use it on lots of different platforms. You can use it on UWP. So that means that you can make a universal app with it. You can potentially, I think you could run it in something like HoloLens. You can run it in Xamarin. Yeah, so it looks really nice. All the methods he's done them all as async, and all the things that might happen in UCWA, he's exposed them all as events. So that's really nice, because one of the problems with UCWA is it's really powerful. You can do lots with it, but you're quite close to the metal. You're responsible for the HTTP requests and responses, and if you want to listen for an event, so like a presence change or somebody leaving or joining a room or something like that, those are all done with long poll gets. So the code gets quite complicated quite quickly. So it's great that there's this kind of wrapper around it using common, familiar, friendly C# constructs. Brilliant. It's it's really useful. I'm going to play with it this weekend. But yeah, it's a nice library. It's a nice thing to have in the toolkit. So thanks, Ken. That's really cool. All right. That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover off this week. Like I say, I'm kind of going to try and commit to doing some blogging. I've got some conversations with some people at the moment about doing something really cool, and I'm going to try and make it work to do with the speech translator API that I blogged about a couple of weeks back. So watch this space on that. That should be kind of cool if I can put it together. If I can, I'm going to do it as a blog post. And then completely nothing to do with Skype for Business, Skype for Business Dev. But if you been following for the last couple of months, you'll know I've been doing some blog posts around Ubiquiti Unify Mesh Wi-Fi as well. I'm going to try and commit to finish those off and finish those blog posts off and get them published as well. Just trying to get stuff, through the sausage mixer and out the other side. So thanks very much for watching again. Have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing, and speak to you again next week.